Islamic divorce versus government divorce. Is it the same? No, it is not. And the same applies to marriage. It is not the same. And many people they make an awful mistake regarding this. Just because you're divorced in the civil courts does not mean you're divorced in Islam. Just because you're married in the civil courts does not mean you're properly married in Islam. So we know the answer to this question, and we know the confidence behind the answer to this question by looking at the conditions of marriage and the obligatory things of marriage. From that which is obligatory in Islam, not necessarily a condition, but a wajib, according to most of the ulama, most of the traditional schools of thought, is that there must be a wali. In the civil court, does there have to be a wali? No. There has to be two witnesses. In the civil court, do we have to have witnesses? No. So therefore, you may get married, they stamp your paper, they give you a certificate, but it doesn't mean it was done according to the kitab and the sunnah. Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa rad. The Prophet ﷺ says, whoever does something that is not in agreement with what we are on and upon, it will be rejected. So the same applies to marriage and divorce. Now, if you go somewhere and the civil courts walk hand in hand with Islam, la bas, like in certain Muslim countries. But there are many other Muslim countries in which you get married twice. You have to get married twice. You have to go to the courts and you also get married in the masjid. Why is that? Except because of what? They are no longer what? The same as they should be. Everyone understand this? So therefore, if you're married by state, you make sure you get divorced properly in the masjid, and you also divorce by state. Or if you want to get married in the state for the event, the benefits, family, property, etc., la bas. But just because they say that you're husband and wife does not mean that you're husband and wife in Islam until the conditions are met and fulfilled. Wallahu alam.
One time I have a simple. You say that if you tell your wife that I don't like you or I don't want to see you no more or I hate you or something, right? And long, like how much months?
We said 4.
4 months. And I have the same problem.
Okay.
And since me and my wife left 2014, and the same thing I told her, because all the time, every day we fighting. Told her still all the same thing because we still separate.
Clear.
So I still tell her just like that because so that I'll give you divorce, like right, like I tell her with 100 times, right? But and I just take her to the sheikh,
Clear.
and the sheikh talk to me the whole full time, and I leave.
Clear. What I would tell you, Akhi, I would tell you to not to do anything unless you have the proper Islamic guidance. The question is regarding the ilad type of divorce or something similar to that. A man doesn't like his wife or his wife doesn't like him. They can't agree. They can't get along, etc. And he's away from her for some time, etc. What happens? Don't do anything unless you have the proper Islamic guidance. Even if you know the answer, you've read it, you've studied it, it's nothing like Islamic advice. Just like a doctor. You can go on Google and get a pretty accurate description of what's bothering you. But they clearly tell you on medical.com or WD or MedD, whatever. Medscape. They tell you this is not what? You cannot dispense from professional medical what? Advice and attention. So therefore, go to a scholar, an imam, with your wife specifically. And if you wish to live with your wife, even with the problems, try to work it out, inshallah. You can't get along, it's not good for you, then do the divorce properly. Properly, inshallah.
I take her to the imam. The imam he went to, from Ghana, he went to Saudi study, like
Okay.
10 to 11 years. And the sheikh, he's Sheikh Masood. You know your name? Sheikh?
I'm not familiar with it.
He teaches young girls. I take her full time to the imam. And she don't want to change.
Inshallah. If I can help you out, I can speak to you privately.
A long time, I mean, she left since 2014, 15, 16, I put in for divorce. And I have my divorce. She not come. She don't want to come by my family. So,
Khalas.
she don't want to
Yeah, it's been over those amount of years. You've divorced her. It's finished. Allah knows best.
Yeah. So, one time I talked to I was talking to my sheikh. She asked me if I take back my wife. So the Imam, between me and you, I told you I didn't want her back. But I don't know why you asked me like that.
Subhanallah.
I think this is between you.
Yeah, we're gonna move on to the next question.
So the thing on, by the thing, so left, since that time I'm gonna take back.
Inshallah.
See the Imam ask her.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. Inshallah.
So that I'm not gonna
Moving along. I will speak to you right after class. Inshallah. Let's move on. May Allah bless you. Ameen. Fadda.
Angel AV, Brooklyn, New York, Barakallahu Fikum. How did the Salaf determine which ayat were to be taken literally and which were to be taken otherwise? And what methodology do we use to determine this? Hashtag empty cup.
Questions from Brooklyn. He said, say the question. The Salaf, how did they determine which ayat
Would it be taken literally?
could be literally and which are figuratively, etc.? And what methodology do we take, etc.? It's a very simple answer. And that is the asl of the Arabic language or any language is always going to be literal. That's the asl. That's the asl. And things that are figurative are only figurative because they have been accepted as so. And the people have established it for a very long time that it's not literal. I'll be there in 2 minutes. That's only based off of what? People. But the asl of time is that it's what? Let's ask a serious question. The asl of time is that it's what? Literal or figurative? The train leaves at 12 p.m. You can't go to the train station, oh man, I thought it was going to be 12:15 or 12:30. No. The conductor says all aboard and what? That's it. How we talk, I'm sending you a text message, I'll be there in 2 seconds. Everyone understand this? Everybody clear on this or not? But when you talk about the calculation of time, time is not going to be figurative. Everyone understand this? So the asl of that is that it's what? Literal. And it only became figurative based off of what? A dalil, a proof. And that proof is the people, the custom of the people. That proof is the distance. وهكذا. So the asl of lugha is not some type of figurative game or party in which every single thing is metaphorical, everything is a simile, everything. Everyone understand? And if that was the case, then that would be a misguiding and a vague language at the least to say, let alone a book that Allah called Tibyanan li kulli shay. Clarification for all things. A book that Allah calls Huda, guidance, Shifa, cure, Rahmah, mercy, Maw'idha, reminder, exhortation, dhikra, tadhkiratun, tabsira, basair. How many names does Allah give the Quran? How many of those names befitting of every single verse having a what? Different, hidden, figurative meaning that was never ever mentioned until 3rd century, 4th century, 5th century, 6th century. That just doesn't make what? Any sense. Everyone understand this? So that's first and foremost. The asl of it is that it's dhahir. Everyone understand this? And for a person to claim and say that, well, the Salaf were upon that aqidah of interpretation and it's not literal type. Can you prove that? Faddal. Explain where that's stated at in any book of tafsir. Everyone understand this? Then we have the confusion. وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. It says Allah is with you wherever you are. It says, is that dhahir to you? Do you take that literally? How does the verse begin and how does the verse end? With what attribute? What does Allah say? Where's the father of the Quran, huh? Where's the reciters at? The Quran teachers in this masjid. Huh? Allah begins the verse with what? Huh? And he ends it with what? With knowledge. That is a clear context clue of what's meant. Let alone the fact that in the Arabic language, someone being with you can be literal. But it doesn't mean they have to actually be with you. Everyone understand this? So there's just different levels, different ways of understanding what's correct and what's incorrect. So that's the asl, that's the what? That is the asl. And as we just stated, if you interpret a verse and make it quote unquote, this part of the verse is not figurative, it's not literal, it's figurative, If there's a solid proof, and if there's a need, and if it's not distorting it, then that's not necessarily prohibited in Islam. Everyone understand this? And it's well known to the scholars of Islam. The rules of tafsir and interpretation. But that doesn't mean tahrif, distortion. Everyone understand this? In which you take 20 attributes and give all of them what? One meaning. That's distortion. So that's the difference, okay? It's just that simple. Wallahu alam. Next question.
Initial ZD, Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum mufti. In my African culture, people say that they'll testify for each other on the day of judgment for the good they have done. Is this allowed?
Questions coming from Toronto. In my African culture, people say that they'll testify for the good that someone has done on the day of judgment. Is this allowed? You don't know what's going to happen on the day of judgment. How do you know Allah is even going to make you a witness? We don't know. You can be in the fire of hell on the day of judgment. A'udhu billah. How do you know? How do I know? Who knows our standing with Allah Azza wa Jal? And who knows who's going to be honored to be a witness or one to intercede? We don't know that. So, as we just said about the previous question and the previous issue, we have the utmost respect for Allah. And that utmost respect is based off of what Allah Azza wa Jal tells us. And the Messenger of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tells us. And understand this? And Allah mentions, Yawma yafirru al-mar'u min akhihi. A man will run from his brother. That verse, among others, prove is that the day of judgment is something which isn't so conventional. And normal things are not going to be so normal on that day. When would a man flee his brother? His wife, his children. هذا هو يوم ترونها. Allah says on the day in which you see it. Everyone understand this? تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت. Allah Azza wa Jal, He tells us about women that are bearing things, women that are breastfeeding, etc. All right? The concept of something which is normal and conventional on that day won't necessarily be the same. So the point that I'm trying to get to is that we have to have respect for Allah with regards to that day. And that's based off what Allah tells us. Everyone understand this? And that day is not a hotli yawmin azim. It's not a simple, normal, easy, basic day. So we don't know what we're going to do on the day of judgment. I would avoid making that type of statement and making that type of claim. Who knows that you'll be honored on the day of judgment to be a witness? Who knows that? Everyone understand this? And of course, last but not least, it makes no sense and it's total foolishness for a person to use a verse in the Quran to negate and to distort and to warp 10 other verses in the Quran. For a person to say, you can't say Allah is still al-arsh because laysa kamithlihi shay. It's common sense. Laysa kamithlihi shay is the same as thumma istawa al-arsh. It's both mentioned in what? One book. So how can one verse be used to say that another verse cannot be so? Does that make any sense now? Clearly not. Everyone understand this? And laysa kamithlihi shay is the principle for what? All of Allah's names, attributes, and actions. Everyone understand that? Wallahu alam.
Initials HP, Sacramento, California. Mufti, how do I do simple da'wah to people that don't know much about Islam? How do I prove to them that Islam is the true religion?
Simple da'wah, people that don't know much about Islam, how can I prove to them that Islam is the true religion? Through your actions. Be clean, be neat, be on time, be courteous, be brave, be truthful, be generous. If you play sports, be a good athlete. If you're a businessman, be a good businessman. If you are whatever you do, make sure you do the best way. Inna Allah kataba al-ihsana ala kulli shay. The Prophet says, perfection is made and placed upon all things. All right. If you get the opportunity to call them to Islam verbally, then do so. Ask them, what is your religion? Are you a Muslim? That's a way of engaging someone. I said, excuse me, are you a Muslim? Oh no. Really? Why not? They're not used to being asked that question. Rather, they're used to saying, why are you a Muslim? And many people say, I'm a Muslim because this. You say, why aren't you a Muslim? You have to reverse it on the people. You have to find ways of engaging them, ways of talking about certain things. So there are different types of dawah, different levels of dawah, different styles of dawah. You have to find the way that's most suited for you and your abilities and your knowledge and where you are and what you're doing in life. That could be with a good word, how you doing. That could be with holding a door from someone. That could be by you being a good athlete, a professional person, etc. Everyone understand? So different ways. Wallahu alam.
Initials SA, Ottawa, Canada. What advice do you have for a pupil of knowledge who studies Arabic and is memorizing Quran, but who also works a 9-to-5 job due to circumstance? How can this pupil maintain their iman, hunger, and ambition for knowledge while being constantly surrounded
Questions from Toronto as well regarding student of knowledge who's memorizing Quran, learning Arabic, but they also have to work and they're surrounded by kuffar. How do they maintain their love of knowledge? How do they grow and mature? How do they keep their iman high, etc.? Remain consistent. Remain consistent. An hour a day that you study, just an hour, but you do it every single day. It's a great amount of good. A great amount of good. If you study wallahi for 60 minutes every single day for a month, it's 30 hours at the end of the month, 31 hours. That's almost a whole day of studying. And if you study properly and consistently, it will add up. And it'll become and turn into a solid forged piece. Bidnillahi ta'ala. So that's for consistency. Once you do that for a month or 3 months straight, then inshallah you turn it up to 2 hours a day or an hour and a half. Or if that's all the time that you have between work and family, you do it every day. And bidnillahi ta'ala, it's going to add up with regards to Arabic and with regards to the Quran. But you have to know is that there are certain places you cannot reach, certain things you cannot have any access to unless you get more knowledge. So you always have to push yourself and motivate yourself to want and demand more. To want and demand more, and this is one of the wisdoms of having a library. Like we mentioned, we were in Birmingham in a bookstore. Being surrounded by the books, it does what? It raises your aspirations. Oh, what's this book about? What's this book about? What is this silsila hadith sahih? What is, oh man, what's this word? You have to give yourself a tease to push yourself forward. Bidnillahi ta'ala. As far as al-iman and keeping and maintaining iman, asking Allah for it, first and foremost. Reflecting upon the creation of the heavens and earth. Learning Allah's names and attributes. Al-asma' al-husna. Wa-sifat al-ulya. Learning Allah's names and attributes. Reflecting on the creation of the heavens and earth. Learning more knowledge. All reasons behind iman being maintained. And behind iman what? Flourishing. Wallahu alam.
What are some techniques that you recommend to gain khushu' during salah?
Sacramento. Question is about techniques to gaining khushu'. Realize who you're standing in front of. I'll give you one specific technique today, and that is spend one day on studying the word or the statement, Allahu Akbar. Just spend one day on that. See what the scholars of Islam say about that statement, Allahu Akbar, and why it is the initial commencement of the prayer. Wallahu alam.
Initial essay, Ottawa, Canada. When surrounded by disbelievers in the workplace setting, is a Muslim required to enjoin the good and forbid the evil, i.e., should a Muslim stop them when they're talking about their sins?
Question is from Ottawa, and this will be our last question tonight. With regards to enjoining the good and forbidding the evil in the workplace, does it also apply to the kuffar? Allah Azza wa Jal hasn't given us any specific exclusion to the rule. He doesn't say enjoin the good and forbid the evil with the believers. Doesn't say that. Enjoin the good and forbid the evil to the best of your ability. Now, the proper fiqh of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is applicable to anyone. There are times in which you cannot and should not enjoin the good and forbid the evil among what? Muslims, let alone kuffar. So that's the rule. The rule is the situation and the circumstance and not the religion or the creed. If there is no circumstance that prevents you from enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, you should do it even among non-Muslims. However, there are certain specifics that don't necessarily apply to them. And there are certain issues that are based off of other issues, such as, are the non-Muslims required to obey the subsidiary rules of the Sharia? هل الكفار مخاطبون بفروع الشريعة? We know that they're not نحن نعلم أنهم مخاطبون بالدخول في الإسلام وأنهم مخاطبون بالإيمان. مخاطبون بهذا الشيء. Allah is speaking out to them to accept the deen, to accept faith, to become Muslim. But are they also required to follow the rules of Islam? Everyone understand this? If you say yes, then obviously what they do of revealing their sins or stealing or this and that is also haram too upon them. And if they are not, then that's a different story. I don't want him at the workplace. Try your best to be a beacon of light. Try your best to represent Islam. And of course, there are going to be times at the workplace in which you're going to have to mind your business, even among Muslims, let alone among what? Non-Muslims, in which it's best to remain silent, refrain from speech, and let them be. And Allah surely knows best. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد.